Hi everyone, this is Judy from Judy's Handmade Creation. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Hit the bell so you'll be notified of new videos. And today I'm going to be doing a stencil painting on an 8x10 white canvas. So you'll need an 8x10 white artist canvas, and you will need a stencil brush, a painting brush to paint this black. You need black paint and white paint, and these are matte acrylic paint. It's quick drying. You need a white one and a black one, stencil brush and a regular paint brush so you can paint this black. And this is an 8x10 inch, and I'll be using the Plaid FolkArty 80 design stencils, and I'm going to be using this one here. This one says, "Together is our favorite place to be," and I'm going to paint it. I'm going to stencil it on here. I already painted this black. I took 2 coats, and to get it quick dry, I usually paint it and use my little dryer here to dry it, and then I'll paint another coat and use it again and dry it. So that way it quick dries. That's how I dry it quick, so I can keep on painting. And since I got this one already painted, you need an 8x10 artist canvas, and you can use a paper plate to put your paint in, but I like to use this because I can rewash it and keep using it over. And what you do is you take your stencil and you place it down where you would like, and then I usually take masking tape to try to hold it down, little pieces. I already got some cut to keep it where it won't move when I paint it. And just glue it down once you get it nice and neat and straight where you want it. I think I got that, and I think that's straight. Tape it down with your masking tape. And I just take and tape it down. Tape it all the way down around. Okay, and to keep it from bleeding, I'm going to paint some Mod Podge over top of it so it won't bleed up underneath before I use my paint over it. Just a little bit around it, and then let this dry. That way to stop it from bleeding up underneath. So that's why I'm gonna paint this around it, so to look nice and neat. I'm gonna paint it where I'm gonna stencil over the design with the Mod Podge. This way to stop it from smearing or bleeding up underneath. I just use a little bit over the top. Just paint it over the top where you're going to paint your, stencil your paint over top. I'll just make sure I got like a light coating all around it. That looks like it might be pretty much lightly done. And then I'm going to just take my hair dryer. I'm going to put this in my water so it won't get, so it'll wash out easy. And I'm going to take my heat dryer to dry this real quick. This fast dries it. Let's try to fast dry it real quick so you don't have to wait for this to dry. When it's pretty much dry, then you can stencil over top of it. And this usually dries it quick. And that's how I keep from up underneath bleeding. And when you think it's pretty much dry, then you can stencil your paint over it. Let me let it cool off a second. I'll see if it's dry. Then I'm going to use my white paint and my stencil, and I'm just going to stencil over top of it. Put a couple coats and dry it in between. Yeah, it seems like it's dry. Let me let it cool off a second. And shake up. Now, meanwhile, while that's cooling off, you can shake your white paint up real good. That you're going to stencil over top of. That you're going to stencil the paint. Paint over top of your stencil. And shake it up real good. And this is a paint palette that I'm using. I'll put a little bit in here. And just put what you need. And I usually wet my brush down a little bit because that's what I usually do. Just to get a little moist. I got like a little jar here that I can use a little bit of water on it. And then I'm just going to take and dab my paintbrush in here. I'm not going to use it, just lightly smear it down in there. You don't want too much because you don't want it to go up under the stencil, like to make it look like it's bleeding. And then you're just going to dab over top. Until you fill in all your design. You can do probably maybe 2 coats, depending on if you can still see some of the black up underneath the paint over the stencil. I usually do about 2 coats and dab out some of your paint. You don't want none of this to get up and make it look like your designs running or bleeding once you take your stencil off. And just dab it pretty good. I like to use a stencil because if you don't know how to paint a design, the stencil helps you get a pretty nice painting. And these are pretty, when you use stencil, it's pretty quick to make a painting. If you take and heat dry it with your hair dryer or any kind of heat gun you got to dry it with, a craft heating tool. Well, when you don't see none of the black, then you know you got pretty much everything covered. So I ran out of paint. I gotta put more on there. This is just the first coating, and then you can take on the side, just dab a little bit out so you don't get too much paint on it. And just dab it over it. Because you don't want no bleeding once you move the stencil. You want the design to look pretty. No running back there. When you go to dip your stencil brush in there, just try to get some of the paint off of it on one of the empty palettes there, painting palette things. Oh, and don't do like I do, get paint on the side. If you do, try to wipe it off or repaint over it with your black. I gotta watch because sometimes I get it over on the black part. And then I just take my fast dry it with your craft tool or your hair dryer or whatever you got. Fast dry it again. That way you don't have to wait a whole hour for the coats to dry. And then you can just go over and do your second coat and how many coats you're going to do. And this dries up pretty quick when you use your craft tool or your hair dryer heating tool to dry it. It dries nicely. And like I said, these are quick to do. For me, they're quick to do. So I dry them, I'll quick dry them. that feels right. Like I can go over it again with another, my second coat of white paint. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. I'll usually dab it in there and then work a little bit over there so you don't get too much paint and then it goes up underneath. See, it gets hard to see the design after you get the paint on it. You gotta make sure you get it all, because it's harder to see once you do the first coat. Now I'm just going to work it around the edges to make sure I don't miss any of it. I want to make sure I get all around the outside of it, and then I'll work on the inside, because it's hard to see it once you cover it up with one coat of the white. You can always tell if you see any of the black showing through the design, you know you didn't get it all. Then you want to make sure that it doesn't bleed up underneath, because if it does, it's not going to look that pretty. I need a little bit more white paint. Make sure you get all your letters in your design. And then you're going to heat dry it again. I'll make sure everything's nice and dab so you don't see any of the black coming through it. And then I'm going to take and heat dry, fast dry it again. I'll see if this two coats look like it's okay. If it is, then after I dry it, I'll see if it's alright. This dries your design quick. It dries the paint on it. That way you don't have to wait for a whole hour for it to dry. And I'm just going to look over it one more time to see if I see any of the black. If I do, I'm going to dab it. And I think I see a couple more spots that, like right there, that didn't get no paint. Just double check your design to make sure everything looks great the way you want it. Because once you take that off, it'll be hard to put it back on there. And you don't want to take it off if your design ain't right. You want to make sure everything looks good. So it might look good. Let me try again. And make sure it's really dry before I take the design off of it. Because I don't want any smearing to happen of the paint. I try to keep all this paint off my hands. You want to make sure all your paint is good and dry before you take the tape and lift your design. See if it's dry. I always look at my hand to make sure. And then I'm going to peek to see if it looks like it's the design's on there. It might be. Let me peek down here. Take off my tape and see if my design looks okay. Might have some bleeding, but I didn't want it to be too bad. I see where I got the paint right there. So there's my design. And it turned out pretty good. Oh, it turned out pretty good. And it looks great. And you can read it. And that's the one I just done. See where I got that little bit of white paint? I might have to paint over that. But it'll be okay once I paint over it again. I'll take and put a little bit of black paint over it. And that'll fix that right up. That's where I was not watching what I was doing. I'll take and put a little bit of paint. Just a touch up. I'll just cover that little bit of, and it turned out pretty nice. Let me dry that because I don't want to forget about it and then touch it and then it mess up the design. Yeah, if you touch it up, make sure you dry it because you don't want it to get on your white. Yeah, it looks pretty nice. And you have to, when you get done with these, you always got to wash them off because if you don't, you gotta get too much of it. But these are reusable. You can reuse these over and over. And you get all these different designs here. What's it? You get letter, alphabets, and all that. And this is the one I just did. And I got one I did on live stream. I'll show you that one. And this is the one I did on my live stream the other night. And this one here, and this says, "Family makes our house a home." So, if you like the stencil, get creative. Go buy you some artist canvas. Sometimes the dollar store has these. You get them at the dollar store. They got small ones. Sometimes they have the bigger ones, the 8x10s. That's what I got. I think I got these from there, the 8x10 ones. And I got some small ones at the Dollar Tree store. I'll show you the smaller ones I got at the Dollar Tree store. I got these here at the Dollar Tree store. You get 3 of them in there. See where it says? These are 4x6 inch. And these were $3 for $1 at the Dollar Tree store. And you can get the stencil brushes up. You can get any kind of stencil brush. But this is the one I just did and it turned out great. Hope you like it. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. I got all this stuff I gotta clean up.